We've got a special treat for you here today because I thought that this would be such a fun thing to talk about, that this person had an incredible Twitter thread about the tiebreak vote and all of its ramifications. Of course, that he knows a thing or two about convoluted rules from playing Blood on the Clock Tower. Please welcome back from Survivor 43, the great Dwight Moore is here to talk about all this stuff. And Dwight, I thought it would be super fun to walk through this tiebreak scenario with somebody who really knows the rules and get your thoughts on all of it.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Dwight, how are you, by the way?
I am doing great. Glad to be on this. It's like a week in a row.
Thank you for answering the call.
Of course. Gladly. Love to talk about rule scenarios like this. This is fun for me. I probably shouldn't have made that long Twitter thread, but I was like, I just had to. I was like,
I loved it. I read it yesterday morning, and I was like, we should get Dwight to come on and talk about all this.
Yeah, I'd love to. So the big thing for me with this, it was another unprecedented situation where we had another tie where one person to tie can't vote, one person can. So we had this precedent set on season 47 where it was Sam and Sierra. And Probst was like, okay, usually on tie votes, the two people in the tie can't vote. However, because one person already lost their vote, we're allowing the other person to vote to consider the fact that one could vote, one did when it happened.
Yeah. So now, Dwight, had that ever happened before? Because I know at that time, and I had done the podcast with Christian that week, and he was at that moment like, since when are we having this? Do you know, had there ever been a scenario in the past where was that a rule change going into Survivor 47?
As far as I've looked up, I think that was not a rule change. It was just like the first time it had happened.
First time it happened.
Where it was a tie and one person didn't have a vote. So as far as I'm aware, that was not a rule change. Someone correct me if I'm wrong about that. But this is the first time they had to actually come to that and realize, okay, we need to have a rule in place for this scenario. So fair. Again, I think that rule is a good one because it does account for the difference in voting status between two players on a revote. I think the one thing that isn't accounted for is and someone correct me about this, I'm not sure. There's a three-way tie. I think the rule is none of them. Is it all of them or none of them? I think it's on the three-way tie.
I don't know. Let me ask the chat on that one, and we could look up the three-way tie, because somebody asked that question earlier, and I think that on the three-way tie, none of the people in the three-way tie are allowed to vote. Now, Dwight, let me just get your overall thoughts on this. So that were you thinking that Survivor got it right in terms of the tiebreak, or do you think that there is an issue with what happened in this tribal council?
I think they interpreted the rules as they currently have them correctly, and I think those interpretations are wrong.
Okay.
To extrapolate on that a bit further. So as we established in 47, we have this, rule change when one person votes, one can't. So on 48, we have the same scenario. One person tie can vote, one cannot. That being Sai can vote, Justin can't. Then we go to this revote where on this revote again, Say and Cedric are able to vote. And then we go to this deadlock phase. And suddenly the rule where one person has a vote, one doesn't, is thrown out the window. And it's now only Cedric, which I think having those two phases of the voting system, the revote and the discussion phase, have different rules accounting for the lost voting status is unreconcilable. I don't think that should be a thing where the status matters at one point and one doesn't. Because, of course, and this is to go to a bigger example, but let's go on to back to 47. Let's say, because 47 was a 4-4-1. What happened? Let's throw out the one. Let's say it was 4-4 between Sam and Sierra, and you have a revote and go to deadlock again. And I think, as the rules are interpreted currently, Sam would not get a say in this, and it'd be a forced, it would be the 17th.
So confusing. There's actually a person named Say also involved with this.
Yeah, it doesn't help with the argument. I say sort of saying a lot, but Sam and Sierra are in this tie. This was a 4-4.
Yeah.
The revote happens. Sam goes on a revote. Sierra does not, and then you go to the discussion phase, and then Sam would have gotten
Sierra voted on the revote. Sam did not.
Is that right?
But I believe that Sam was the one that lost his vote.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, whatever. There are examples. Whatever. In this case, Sierra would have gotten to participate in the discussion. Sam wouldn't have. And the way the rules are currently interpreted, I think it would be the 7 people would get to discuss, not include Sierra. But once again, that throws out the fact that Sierra voted, Sam did not. The rule I would currently propose is that.
So I don't even think that there is a discussion. I think it's that in that scenario, Survivor 47, that there was a tie and that they had to do a revote.
They did a revote.
And I don't think, and the revote, because it was odd number of people voting, I don't think could have been deadlocked.
That's why I started the scenario by saying throw out the one vote. I started the scenario by saying that. So exclude that. Let's say it wasn't possible to have a deadlock. The rules would have been, as we saw in 48, Sierra would have then been removed from this conversation to 7 people talking. And personally, I think the rules should be consistent across, considering the revote and the discussion the same, where anyone who participates on the revote should get to discuss about the rocks. And even though, yes, that could mean in this 47 example, Sierra could just strong arm and say, okay, we're either voting out Sam or going to rocks. And I actually think that should be how it's interpreted, because it does, and I think it needs to properly, and this is a whole nother discussion. People are going to be like, you're agreeing with lost votes. I don't. But I think it actually does need to, punish players who lost their vote more so. And that's like, they should have less weight throughout the entirety of tribal, not bring down the person out of vote alongside them. If they have no vote throughout tribal, they should lose their vote throughout tribal, and other people should have a say when they do not. That should be made clear throughout the entire tribal and not arbitrarily taken away at one certain phase of the whole voting process, is how I believe the rule should be turned. It should be consistent, and it was not consistent on the episode.
All right. So your major point of contention is that on the second revote, that Say should have still been involved in that decision. It should not have been between just Cedric making that call. It should have been.
It should have been, since Say was able to vote on the revote.
Yes.
Then Say should be able to participate in the discussion, because my understanding of the deadlock rules is you need to convince people who voted that second time to just change their mind, and you need them to break away from what they're doing, or they're going to go to rocks. In this scenario, Say vote on the revote. Say is saying stick to we're voting out Justin, and then suddenly her vote's been taken away, which is going against the the whole premise of deadlock, which is people voted for the same person multiple times. You need to convince them to break away from it. And suddenly removing Say's voice, even if she got a vote, her opponent didn't have a vote the whole time. So why are you now bringing her down to his status of having no vote? And that's just my problem with this. So
after Say and Justin tie on the second time, what would you have wanted to see happen?
Unfortunately, I think it should have just been Cedric either realizes, and just because it's an unfortunate scenario where it's down to 4 players, so it's the first time it happened. So people are gonna say it shouldn't just be Cedric. Justin immediately eliminated. But rules need to be consistent, and the fact that the first time this happened was in such a low tribe example is unfortunate for this argument, because people are gonna say oh, Justin shouldn't be gone immediately. But going to the bigger example, once again, with Sam Sierra, I think if some people are, let's say it was a split down the middle tribe, and Sam Sierra were opposite alliances, right? And Sierra has a vote, Sam doesn't, and then now does Sam's alliance in this case agree? Okay, we're going to vote out Sam, or do we all play hardball and say, okay, we're going to go to rocks, and with even though Sierra would be safe? I think in this scenario, that's what should happen, and they shouldn't have the option of Sierra anymore, quote unquote. Just because Sierra had a vote and Sam does, people they voted between one has a vote, one doesn't.
Yeah.
For bigger examples, but yeah, I think in this one it should have just been Cedric has to either vote out Justin or go to rocks, which is go home for him in this scenario. But
see, I almost wonder if, because it's in this tiebreak scenario, Cedric and Say have tied. Okay, so and Cedric has already cast his vote for Justin at the point where it's this tie vote. I guess Cedric has to either change his vote to vote for Justin, because he already voted for Say. If he I feel like he should not be able to vote Say out in that scenario. I think his 2 decisions need to be either change your vote to vote out Justin, or it's now deadlocked, they're safe, and you go home. I don't think that Cedric should have the option to vote out Say in that spot. Why does he get the only decision? He should be able to either, if this was a normal tie, you either get to, somebody needs to change their vote. I mean, look back at the, going back to, say, Millennials versus Gen X, where it's okay, Will Wall could switch his vote and go to the other side, but it's not like that he's picking who everybody could just this is a bad example, but does it make sense what I'm saying? Cedric already voted for say, like, he shouldn't get more control over, like, now he's like an extra vote for say, like he can
Exactly.
switch his vote to Justin, or then it should default to, all right, well, now those two are safe because they tied their vote. That's the rule. And now, Cedric, you automatically go home.
Yeah,
So I
think
kind of feel like he's
what you said is
strong-armed.
perfect.
Yeah.
Is like Cedric, in a sense, got an extra vote because of the current interpretation of the rules, right? Because it's the tie example. One person votes, one doesn't. It gives way to say having a vote, and suddenly it's removed, giving Cedric effectively an extra vote because it got all the way to deadlock. And I think, yeah, some people will disagree with me forever about this. Like, I think someone's saying in chat, it's like proposing Justin's eliminated as soon as Mary Shot in the Dark hits. Unfortunately, in the world that I'm proposing, yes, I'm saying with the current interpretation of the rules, or not with the rules I'm proposing, when revote happens and then, yeah, say is forced to say Justin's name because of the tie, Cedric's options should be either Justin has to go home or Cedric self-eliminates. That is, and it sounds absurd, but I am proposing that if there's going to be consistent ruling, that's how this specific scenario with the shot in the dark hitting and these votes, it should have resulted in exactly Justin going home almost as soon as that shot in the dark hit. Yes, that is exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because there needs to be a consistent ruling, and the only way to have a consistent ruling that actually respects the revoting and the one person having it, one doesn't, is saying that the rule should be, if you vote on the revote, you should talk in discussion phase. That's just a consistent rule that would allow for votes to matter all the time.
Dwight, do you think that all of this could just be solved when we say, like, we have a 4-person tribal council, that should we have fire making at a 4-person tribal council? Would that solve all this?
Honestly, that would be kind of fun too. I'd like that. That'd be interesting.
It's interesting because I think that this was similar to, like, at the merge. Well, actually, it's different because that the person with the shot in the dark doesn't get a vote, whereas it's not like that somebody who won individual immunity, like, you wouldn't have this at the final 4 because the person who won individual immunity still would get to cast a vote. So this was a truly odd scenario that we had here, where that there was 2 lost votes in a 4-person tribal council, where we had a tribal council with 4 people, but only 2 votes.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm impressed. It's wild that's what happened. I do want to, like, acknowledge something in the chat saying, to go back to talk about second chances. Kimmy didn't have a say in the tie vote when she went home. Yes, and that's something I cover in, like, a little video I made. So what happened in Cambodia is they did the first vote, it was 3-3 idle played, and the second vote was considered a quote unquote revote, but all 6 people voted. So it was between Tasha and Kimmy, and you can assume in this case there is an implied actual revote because the first vote had no vote, so it's an implied revote between Tasha and Kimmy, where Tasha and Kimmy don't vote. So then those 4 people have discussion. So again, you have to kind of like consider that implicit revote happening.
Tasha
there.
And Kimmy voted on the revote.
They voted on the revote. They did. It went from 3-3 to another 3-3 vote. But because the first vote had 0 votes because both people played Isles, Jeremy, and Kelly, there was a second, all 6 players voted. But then you can assume there is a third implicit revote where it goes to 2-2.
So was that first revote where all 6 people voted because the vote was actually, had it been, you know, because the votes were for 3 votes for Jeremy, 3 votes for Kelly. Now it's like, get up, everybody vote again. And then it got tied for what, Tasha and Kimmy on the
revote. And I think that they didn't really consider that, you know, this is a revote, but it's not really a revote because it's between new people. So, right. Yeah, there would be implicit revote between Tasha and Kimmy. Those 2 don't vote. And I'd say those 4 have discussion leading to what happened, what we saw played on the episode.
Right. And then Jeremy and Kelly are both immune, so you can't vote for them. Keith Nail says, like, oh, I'll just go to the house. That's fine. Yeah. And then there's like, Kelly's like, Keith, don't do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and I think another part of the whole discussion is, someone saying, rules for you need to have your vote not greater than the tie. Yes, and the rules for tie votes in Survivor up to season 47 were, if you're part of the tie, you can't revote. But suddenly the rules were changed to account for lost votes. And I'm saying, why are people saying everyone was okay with the 47 ruling of the tie vote, like nothing? The revote should have 0 votes, Sam doesn't. Everyone was basically okay with that for the most part because, we should account for lost votes. So why are people suddenly not okay with this mattering for discussion phase? Rules need to be changed to account for changes in mechanics. So the new era is going to have a lot more lost votes. It's going to be part of the game, and that was accounted for in the revote. But now we're not accounting for that in discussion phase, and that's just a major problem I see with the design of the game. They're not having consistent rulings. They didn't make this clear. I think anyone, like a lot of people, when I'll watch the episode and text people, be like, people thought Cedric voted himself out because of, it makes sense with that ruling. It's because of 47 ruling, but suddenly it's inconsistent with 48. And I just don't really like how there's not a concrete, structure about who gets to participate in discussion. I think the way you can talk about this is you can say people who would be in the rock draw should get to discuss about it. Okay, so why did Jeremy and Kelly get discussed in second chances? So that can't be it. Okay, it should be people who
do you want to see people out of this conversation? Do you want to see them removed from the tribal council during the discussion?
What do you mean?
When you say you don't want them to be part of the discussion, do you want them okay, go stand over there so you can't be part of this conversation?
They should be there to influence. I'm just saying, having their voice actually made.
Got it.
What I meant.
Okay. Yeah. Can we just at the risk of repeating ourselves, could we just talk through it one more time and then get Dwight's ruling on what should happen at each phase? Okay, so we have our vote. Mary plays the shot in the dark. Mary is safe. We count our votes. 2 votes for Mary. Revote. Everything still fine, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So Mary shot in the dark hits. We have the tribal play out again where Cedric
votes for
Say.
Say votes for Justin. Okay, now what should happen?
Okay, so that was the first vote. We revote with the rules established in 47. There was a tie between Say and Justin. Justin had no vote throughout the entire tribal council, so Say gets to vote again. Say will vote for Justin implicitly. And now Cedric has a choice between Cedric has a choice between Say and Justin. They go vote and we see what happens again. Say votes for Justin, Cedric votes for Say.
Okay.
The way I think the rules should be interpreted is if you participate in the revote and it's still deadlocked, you should have a say in the discussion phase. So at this point, I believe that Say and Cedric should discuss whether Say or Justin should go home. Say is obviously going to say Justin's going home. So that means Cedric basically has to vote out Justin or go home himself. That is a harsh ruling, but I think that needs to be consistent with respecting the rules about the revote, make that consistent with the rules about deadlock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in that scenario, Say can convince Cedric to flip to Justin, but there are not 2 Justin votes in any scenario. So I feel like in that ruling, that then if Cedric does not budge, the vote will continue to be 1-1, which forces us to the non-tied players having to draw a rock, and Cedric has to go home.
Exactly. Say
should be immune in this scenario.
That is my interpretation. That is what I believe should be the ruling. Yes.
I agree. Yeah, I think we solved this. And so there was no scenario where Say should have gone home in that tribal council based on the way it played out. Mm-hmm. And Cedric should have been much more at risk of either Cedric vote out Justin or you have to go home.
Yeah, the fact that Say survived this tribal, I think, also led to a lot not as much argument happening along. If Say went home, I feel like there would be a lot bigger firestorm about this ruling. But it kind of worked out the way, in my opinion, it should have.
The way the Survivor gods intended it.
Right.
Yes. Okay. Well, Dwight, this was incredible to talk through with this. I feel like that we really figured something out.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. I just need to talk. I just need to yap about rulings. I love doing this for some reason. So
yeah. All right. Of course, if you like hearing Dwight talk about this sort of stuff, you could play Blood on the Clock Tower with Dwight, which he is doing constantly.
A lot.
Yeah. Dwight, how do people get more involved with hearing more about your rulings on Blood on the Clock Tower?
So yeah, I stream Clock Tower on Twitch at twitch.tv/doingmore on Saturdays and Mondays. And yeah, that's I think the RJP Discord has a lot of people playing as well. A lot of new play games going on all the time. So I definitely say look at that, try it out if you want. And yeah, I'll try and hop in sometimes and play some games. I get more time to do so, but I do want to do that more often.
Okay. And check out Dwight on a new Survivors Playing Blood on the Clock Tower video that's going to be dropping very soon on the YouTube channel.
Ooh, fun.
Okay.
Awesome.
Dwight, thank you so much. Appreciate you hopping in last week on the Q&A with Owen.
No, thank you so much for inviting me both of those last week and this week. I had such a good time.
Okay. Dwight, talk to you soon, okay?
Right, have a good one.
Right.
Bye.
Bye. This is RHAP. We know reality TV.